Welcome to Unit Design 101, where we break down the overall factors that make units useful in Fire Emblem and beyond. Whether you're a ROM hack creator or merely interested in overall design, this resource is for you. This week we're tackling the tough topic of trainees and villagers, what roles these upstart nobodies play in Fire Emblem, and walking the line of both sides of the magic cart problem. Villagers and trainees are technically different, but realistically very similar. They're units you get, usually within the first few maps, which start comically weak even compared to your other low-level units, often because they are part of a Tier 0 class, one step below base classes. All of their base stats are bad, but their potential is their primary asset. There are three main types of trainees: investment multipliers, versatile filler, and mediocre lottery, and it can be hard to differentiate them by looking at the unit alone. It's only in context of the rest of the game, its systems, its other units, and its difficulty level that you can tell what type of trainee a particular unit is. Investment multipliers are units whose late game potential eclipses that of other units, and whose only downside is the difficulty in getting them to the break-even point, where their low base stats are no longer a significant detriment. Awakening's Donnell is the prime example of this type of trainee, being so weak to necessitate deliberate feeding on effectively incapacitated enemies upon joining, and taking basically until reclassing for his stats to catch up, but once he starts snowballing, he can turn into an absolute machine on raw stats alone thanks to the 20% growth boost in all stats from aptitude. His class options are limited, so he doesn't really have versatility, which means the only payoff he gives is the power within his class. The difficulty of getting to the breaking point is often more extreme for investment multipliers, and on higher difficulties it can be seen as unreasonable to even hit that breaking point, leaving the unit in a bad place and low community rating. That said, on lower difficulties the burden of investment is significantly lighter, meaning they can hit the point of snowballing effectiveness far easier and far earlier. This is part of a phenomenon I call the magic carp problem. It can be difficult, or sometimes just boring, to drag along a useless lump, deliberately hampering your own army to train them up, so the difficulty for doing so needs to feel rewarded in the power jump of the payoff. You don't want it to be too powerful, rendering any other investment obsolete and making the game boring in the opposite direction, but you do need it to feel powerful enough to be worth the effort, otherwise people will question the entire purpose of the painful leveling process. Units like Wendy, Meg, or Amelia often have painful early leveling journeys without any true payoff above what other units are capable of, leaving players feeling like their investment is never truly worth it outside of personal preference, challenge runs, or memes. One way of sidestepping the magic cart problem is focusing on versatility, allowing a trainee far more options in what they can do compared to other units, even if their effectiveness is not significantly better than more specialized units. Jean from Engage and the Gaiden Villagers fit this bill, focusing less on giving you more bang for your buck, and more on filling whatever gaps your army may have well enough. These units all have paths that might be more ideal for them, but their relative flexibility is your reward for training them, having a unit who is good enough at whatever role you choose to put them in, rather than having a unit who's locked into one role. To some extent, the students in Three Houses all fit this bill. While the staff are specialized into their particular roles, the students all begin as mostly blank slates outside of their personal aptitudes and weaknesses. Even the other students in other houses will slowly solidify themselves down a particular path, which means that the earlier you recruit them, the more relative flexibility they have. Versatile trainees can still suffer from the magic cart problem, though. If their start is still painful, it will feel bad if they can't fill at least a somewhat unique role that other units can't, like Ross's water walking as pirate, or Ewan's summoner access after shaman. If raw power isn't a trainee's payoff, then having their versatility not feel unique enough will still make them feel like a wasted investment for many players. This comes to the final version of the trainee, the mediocre lottery. These units do not get better levels than other units, and don't have unique versatility. Instead, they simply gain more levels, either by leveling faster via bonuses like Paragon, or getting more levels to grow by being in a Tier 0 class. The strength of these units is broadly determined by the RNG of their level ups. If you have 10 effectively free levels to grow, but don't get many useful stats, you've effectively wasted all that time and effort to create a unit who's no better than a regular base class unit. However, if you get a lot of useful stats in those levels, you're set up to have a unit that's far stronger than their peers for far less relative investment. This type of unit only really works with random growths involved, as when taking average growths or fixed growths into consideration, they tend to lose everything that makes them potentially special or unique. Ross, Amelia, and Ewan from FE8 find themselves in this category, as do units like FE9 Astrid or FE5 Carrion. Trainee units are difficult to balance for. especially because they hit directly upon a divide in player personality. Some players love seeing weak units grow, and will go out of their way to level a weak trainee even if they have very little payoff. Some players despise trying to train weaker units, and will never touch a trainee even if they have incredible long-term payoff. You can't design a trainee to appeal to everyone, purely because of the aforementioned magic cart problem. Make their training arc too easy, and they cease to be a trainee. Make their training arc too hard, and it won't even matter what the payoff is, people aren't going to do it. Make their payoff too weak, and the training arc will feel incredibly unproportional. Make their payoff too strong, and the entire late game challenge curve gets flattened. Adjust the game to account for that high payoff, and you've successfully created a game where the only viable units are the most long-term powerful ones, risking potential soft locks if a player loses or decides not to train a particular trainee. It is a tightrope that needs to be very carefully walked if one is to create fun, engaging, powerful, and balanced trainees. Thank you for watching this episode of Unit Design 101. If you want more quick videos breaking down units, click the playlist in the end card. A huge shout out to Royal Laguz Guard member Sal Mellon, thank you so much, and a big thanks to Laguz Guard members C2 Piccoli, Enigmatic Mr. L, The Big Herman 007, Bro Duderman, NKO Rico, Kumi, Miss Mesmerism, Lakag, and Relaz6. Thank you for watching, and until next time, this is Mithril Zenith signing out.